TvAgro. How are you? We are today from La Galera. My name is Dionel Pinzón. I am a veterinarian, canine trainer, and a technician in assisted interventions with canines. We are here with the Nawa team. In the nursery facilities, we are going to work today a series of exercises so that you learn to manage your dogs at home and recommendations of how you should work day to day with your dogs.
Diego, Natalia y John.
As you can see here is Juan Diego, Natalia and John. Each one of them has a dog with a different type of dog.
Entonces aquí podemos ver lo primero.
As we can see Juan Diego, who has his dog on his left, we see Natalia, who has her dog on her right, and we see here John,
Natalia, que tiene a su derecha a su perro, y vemos aquí a John, que está trabajando el perro.
What is the idea? When we are with groups of people who are handling dogs, one important thing is not to have the dog in the same area as the other dog.
Perro en la misma área que está el otro perro. O sea, no llegar acá.
Not to bring the dogs too close to each other. Since dogs have safety zones,
Entonces, dependiendo
so depending on the degree of safety of the dog, the width of the zone is usually from 1 to 1.5 meters.
está Juan Diego con su perro.
As we can see, Juan Diego has on his left sides so as not to invade the safety zone of Natalia's dog.
Lo maneja a un espacio.
Here we have John, who also has a distance to one side,
Tiene la distancia. Cosa que
so that I can pass with my dog between them,
y no haya.
and there is no invasion of the safety zone. That is like the first recommendation that we are here in the daycare center in terms of working with the dogs.
Manejar la zona de seguridad.
First, manage the safety zone for each dog when we work as a team.
Lo que son.
As we normally work in groups, let's say on walks, obedience exercises, passing obstacles when it comes to rewarding if we reward very closely.
Si yo estoy premiando.
If I'm rewarding here a dog close to my partner, the dogs can enter into competition and can generate a confrontation.
Que los perros.
Because dogs compete for resources. They can compete for our attention, they compete for food, for toys, balls, that kind of elements.
Por recursos como juguetes, pelotas, ese tipo de elementos, huesos.
We are going to do an exercise with them,
Con ellos. Y es.
and that is each one of them is going to give a prize to a dog.
Entonces,
Juan Diego is going to show us how he gives a reward to the dog.
como podemos ver,
As we can see, one of the things that Juan Diego does is that he takes out the reward after asking for an exercise.
lo mire.
That he looks at it, an important thing,
Es que cuando
let's do it again. When we give the reward to the dog,
no tengamos.
let's not have large amounts of reward in our hands. Let's not do this thing of taking out large amounts that can fall and distract the dog.
La diferencia.
Let's make a difference. The mistake that is commonly made is that we work the dogs close to each other. Then the dogs compete for resources. It can generate confrontation.
Cada uno trabaja en su área.
That should be done is that we withdraw. Each one works in his area and gives a prize to the dog. We are going to teach him the sitting exercise, but what we do is to call the dog's attention. Then we show the signal. When he sits, we give the prize. Always work with prizes in different places, not having prizes in the same place, but having them in several pockets. It is important not to work with bags. Why don't we work with bags? We work with kangaroos as our partners. Each one has prizes in different areas because the bags condition the dog that in the bags everything that sounds packages contain food. What generates is that if the person leaves the house or goes out to the park, it is common to find that the dog at once goes to look for packages and everything that is on the floor because the person in the house has taught him that by sounding a package, there you will go with food.
Y observamos.
They are going to do an exercise and we observe how each one gives a prize and we see what we can modify.
Entonces,
One of the things that is done is that when the prize is given, let's say when I ask the dog for the exercise, prize is given with the open hand. An example, if our partner wants to take the food, I give him the reward with the open hand.
con la mano abierta.
I do not give it this way because this can produce bites. There are dogs that are very anxious and this type of dog can bite me because of anxiety. I'm not going to ask them for anything. I am simply going to give them the treat, small treats. Always work with treats of this size, treats that are manageable, that do not fall apart, that do not generate a trail on the floor, what we call baronas. The breed generates a lot of waste and the dog is distracted on the floor. That is very important to gain the attention of a dog. Not only do we have food, it is also our attitude. Our partners each have a different bond with the dogs. What they do is to reinforce, for example, Juan Diego, go here, call your dog.
Llámalo.
Call him. An exercise that is commonly done here is to go to the call. I have the dog and the canine guides calls him.
Entonces,
When the dog comes, caresses very well Killer and gives him his food.
esto lo hacemos con regularidad.
We do this regularly so that the dogs create a bond with us, and you should do this at home. Day by day, on average, a dog works 10 to 15 minutes a day in exercise. Any rotated, you can do 2 minutes of these exercises, 3 minutes of going to the call, the exercise of how to give the dog the food. Also, it is important to know that you have to motivate them. You have to give them a good caress. Very good boy. Caresses on the cheeks, on the chest, on the back. Do not do this. Do not use to catch the dog in this way, because this can generate excitement in the dog or even lose the attention of the exercise. Always a flat caress on the body.
Yeah.
Call him again, Juan Diego. This is a demonstration that if we have attitude and we have things that interest the dog, what generates to the dog is a good bond. With our partner, we are going to do an exercise of going to the short call. That a helper, as I do in this case, I have it and our partner calls it. If we can observe the dog arrived. What mistakes are commonly made? Call the dog showing food.
Llamar al perro mostrando alimento.
It is a very common mistake that is taken out and call the dog and show food. Another important thing, the posture. Do not call the dog in a way, let's say, euphoric or annoying.
Siempre se llama de forma amigable.
Always called in a friendly way, Tony. Come. The command goes together with the name. The name of the dog, for example, is Killer, and our partner says come. That would be the command. Always create a command to call your dogs. Here, for example, Natalia is going to call her dog. In the case that the partner does not arrive,
No hay lío.
it is not a mess. I am like an assistant, and what am I going to help is that the dog comes. Call him, Natalia. It is also important that the caresses are lateral, on the chest and on the back. Try to avoid caresses on the head.
Tratar de evitar caricias sobre la cabeza. Listo.
Another thing that we are seeing here in the working group. First, the type of collar. Each partner has a different collar.
Primero, el tipo de trailla. Cada compañero tiene una trailla diferente.
Here, John is going to approach with his collar and his dog. Here we can see that John is using a loop collar.
Eso, tráigalo. John está usando una trailla de lazo.
It is a thick loop, and he is also using, in this case, he is in choke mode.
Entonces, en este caso nosotros como digamos,
We as professionals in the part of training, we always advise people to work with dogs with this type of tool.
digamos de qué, de herramienta.
It is always to work with a fixed collar, or it can be a breastplate, because this is something positive.
Es algo que
It is something that does not bother the dog, and the dog can work the exercises without being bothered. While choke collars, whether they have a loop or a chain, normally people without knowing, it can be punishing the dog.
al perro. Entonces no es
It is not positive. The idea is that the dogs associate that working with me is cool. It is not something negative. It is something that they are clear about that. It is also important that the thicker the tie, the more strength I have to use in my hands. So if my dog is big, I have a medium or big sized dog, the dog pulls, and what I do is by a thick tie. It makes it difficult. I have to use more strength in my hands to be able to handle it. That part is important in terms of handling the chain.
acá Juan Diego.
Here our partner has a tie that is even thicker.
Entonces digamos,
This is one of the mistakes that is commonly made, that let's say they have a thick braided tie
trenzado,
and they have it in a choke. What happens, or let's say when the the tie is braided, and they stay in choke.
Entonces van con el perro.
They go with the dog walking, and out of that, they have the hand tense. What they do is to maintain some tension and choking the dog at all times since the tie stays there. It does not release. Let's say if you observe it stays stuck, that it is handling error that as commonly happens when working with dogs.
Listo, nuestra compañera Natalia.
Our partner Natalia has a flat cotton rayeta, like the one I have in my hands, contains a carabiner. Then this carabiner is attached to the fixed collar. Fixed collar is something positive because at no time choke the dog. For example, Natalia moves and can handle it easily without having to be choking the dog.
Entonces es una de las cosas positivas.
It is one of the positive things to handle this type of tradia. Plus, we do not have to make great effort with your hands to handle it, so it is thin and hopefully cotton, so we don't have to burn. One of those things you always work on is you walk with a dog and call it. Let's say you say its name, and if the dog looks at you, you reward it. It is one of those basic things. Natalia asked for a sit, but normally you can also work that way. Let's call it.
Lo que uno va es, digamos, vamos a llamarlo. Olaf, solo me miró.
Hello, I go back and do it.
Entonces vuelvo y lo hago. Olaf, Olaf.
Hello, hello, hello. Very good boy.
Listo. Entonces esto hace.
This makes that taking the dog out with the collar or with the collar that we are going to put on him or the breastplate. Whatever we use is something positive. Always go with the dog and call him, and when the dog looks at us, we reward him.
Amigos de TvAgro.
Friends of TvAgro, we were today from the municipality of La Celera Nawa Nursery, learning of series of exercises for you to work at home. We say goodbye.